America, it's Hugh Hewitt in the ReliefFactor.com studio. Hurricane Dorian making landfall on the Outer Banks. We'll keep you posted as we get news of it, but it's about 50-mile-per-hour winds up and down the banks and storm surge. So pleased to welcome for a special Friday appearance on the show, Admiral James Stavridis, United States Navy retired, former Allied Supreme Commander of NATO, former head of Southern Command, 33 years in the United States Navy, now at the Carlyle Group, and his website is Admiral Stav. Admiral Stavridis, welcome. It is great to have you back.
It's wonderful to be with you, and I missed my normal Wednesday appearance, Hugh, because of Hurricane Dorian. I was down in Jacksonville, Florida, with my elderly parents, making sure they were secure for the storm, which all came out well for us. Now we're really feeling for the Outer Banks.
And for Norfolk and Virginia Beach, we've got to keep our eye on tornadoes down there. I know you've got lots of friends down there. Let me ask you, Admiral, did you ever sail through a hurricane?
I did several times. Did a big one in '93 when we sortied the entire Atlantic fleet. We came out of Mayport. All the ships came out of Norfolk. We've done that again here. The fleet has pulled out of Norfolk. And here's the irony, Hugh. We came out, we kind of skirted the hurricane, and then the damn thing turned away from Virginia and started following us out into the central Atlantic. We finally had to go south to the Azores Islands, get behind this thing, and limp our way back into port, just beat to hell by being out in front of the storm. Here's the irony. When we got back into Norfolk, Virginia, it hadn't even rained in Norfolk.
You know, it's, Admiral, I know you like Patrick O'Brien's Aubrey and Matron stories. And when they describe meeting up with the weather that they had not foreseen in those books, it really comes home how the mariners of old had to deal with just incredible havoc that they never saw coming.
Indeed. And certainly that applies on land as well. If you think about the fact that a day and a half before Dorian lashed the Florida coast, you would have had no indication of it if not for weather satellites, observations, the global network of communications that we enjoy. So we've made advances, but we still, in the end, we can't control these monster storms, and they're going to continue to plague us.
Now, there are three things I want to cover with you in reverse order of importance, and they are haggis, the United Kingdom's deadlock, and Hong Kong. First of all, this morning, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson inveighed against the American tariff on haggis to the Vice President. I'm generally for Bojo and 100% for free trade, but I'd like to make the haggis tariff as high as the China Wall is long. What say you about haggis, Admiral?
Haggis is the most revolting food ever created by the mind of man, and it should not come to these shores.
Thank you. You've weighed in decisively. Now, you must have a lot of experience with everybody in London that's still there from your time at the United as Allied Supreme Commander. What do you make of what is a truly unique constitutional crisis that is gripping London right now?
Well, British politics feel to me like they are in orbit around the planet Zorp, and they're not coming back anytime soon, which is to say it's become extremely difficult to even follow what's happening, the twists and turns of all this. Here's how I would score it right now. I think the macro issue is, are they going to crash out, or are they going to have an orderly withdrawal from the European Union? I'd say right now, 2 in 3, it's a crash out, because we're all very focused on London. We got to take a look across the channel at Brussels. There's no appetite either for extending this thing nor for cutting the Brits a better deal. So at the end of the day, I think they're going to leave. The only question is the conditions under which they do so. And I think Johnson's theory of the case is that he can create an election where effectively he runs against the Parliament and for the will of the people, which still seems to remain something of a majority for actually leaving the European Union. But the Parliament, where his own support has dwindled and dwindled, will be the sticking point here. And I don't think he's going to be able to turn the Parliament at this point, and that's how you end up in mid-October with a crash out.
I agree 100% with your analysis, and we will wait and see whether or not the British Labour Party and the Scottish National Party continue to try and hold this wall against going to the people. I don't think it works for longer than a few days, but we will see. Now, Admiral, I want to turn to Hong Kong, because even though Carrie Lam, the chief executive of of the island city has withdrawn the extradition bill, which triggered protests 3 months ago. They are still scheduled and expected all weekend long at transportation hubs. On Tuesday, the president, Mr. Xi, called for a, quote, determined fight to overcome any risk or challenge that endangers Communist Party leadership or harms China's sovereignty and security, which is ominous. And then I have been reading, in order to try and be less dumb about this subject, Henry Kissinger's book on China, which I read when it came out in 2007, and drew up at this quote from Mao to Henry Kissinger in 1973. When the issue of Taiwan came up, Mao said, "This is quite complex. I do not believe in a peaceful transition. They are a bunch of counter-revolutionaries. How could they cooperate with us? I say that we can do without Taiwan for the time being and let it come after 100 years. Do not take matters on this world so rapidly. Why is there a need to be in such great haste? It is only such an island with a population of a dozen or more million," Zhou Enlai interjected, 16 million. And then he went on to, basically confirm it will use force someday, but we're not in any hurry to do so. That's the context in which I'm watching this in Hong Kong, and I think the mainland can play a very long game here, Admiral. Tell us what you think.
They will. They will play the long game. And we ought to focus on the fact that Taiwan, since Mao gave us that very trenchant quote, Taiwan has continued to build both its population and its economy. It's now about the 25th largest economy in the world, the island of Taiwan, and it's a real prize for the Chinese. So I think they will play the long game. That's why the offending bill was withdrawn by their puppet leader in Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, who I think in the end is going to be a sacrificial lamb before this thing is over. And that is an indication that they're going to kind of pause a little bit longer. They're also, Hugh, watching very closely tactically for whether the students continue to turn out en masse in these protests. So we're poised right on the edge. Angela Merkel, by the way, is in China as we speak, indicative of the fact that the Europeans want to continue to engage with China. U.S. wants to continue to find a way to a peaceful solution here. I think China's prize is not Hong Kong. They've already assimilated Hong Kong. It's really Taiwan. They're going to play the long game. To do that, they can't go rolling in there with the tanks. Let's hope that is how this thing turns out.
Taiwan population now approaching 24 million, up 8 million since Mao and Kissinger talked. Now, Admiral, one of the things that descends on me reading or listening to actually on China, I read it the first time, I'm listening to it now, is that China's history is a canvas of 4,000 years. Ours is 1/20th of it. Their perspective is so much larger than ours, and they've gone through so much more. I don't even know if they take climate change seriously, given Mao's views on nuclear war and the ability of China to endure it. Do you think the Western mind has got any kind of a grip on the Eastern approach and the Middle Kingdom's view of the world?
Not at all. And that phrase you used, the Middle Kingdom, is the operative one. They really view themselves as distinct from all of us who are here on Earth. They are in the middle between the Earth and the heavens. And they feel also a kind of confidence in their ability to last out anything. And the quote that I always pull out of on China was Kissinger and Zhou Enlai having a conversation, and the subject of the French Revolution came up, and Kissinger asked Zhou Enlai what he thought of it, considering the comparison between the Chinese Revolution and the French Revolution. And Zhou said, this was 200 years in the past, Zhou said, it's too soon to tell.
Yeah, it's a remarkable perspective, and I don't think the West, especially with regards to these atolls that they are fortifying and the rites of passage, fully have internalized what it will require to combat that, which is almost monthly, for as long as it exists, almost monthly passages through those waters.
That's absolutely right. What we're talking about, of course, is the South China Sea, an enormous body of water the size of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico combined, and China claims it in its entirety. And what they're trying to do, Hugh, as you know, under international law, they build these artificial islands, and then they make the case that, well, we own the 12 miles around it, the 24-mile contiguous zone, the 200-mile exclusive economic zone, and they use a kind of an ink spot technique to gradually buttress their claim, which is preposterous under international law. So what the U.S. Navy has to continue to do are these freedom of navigation patrols, demonstrating that these are international waters. Here's the key. We've got to get our allies, partners, and friends doing this with us, and not just the Aussies and the Japanese. We need the Europeans to come with us and be part of this, because the whole international community has got to step up to avoid China simply taking this enormous land grab, which, by the way, that body of water is full of hydrocarbons, oil, natural gas. That's why they want it. We've got to step up and face this. We need allies in Asia and around the world to do so.
Is there a realistic chance that the West will resolve to do that for the long term, even the long term that Mao expressed towards Taiwan? I mean, really say, we're here for 100 years if it need take that long.
The short answer to the question is, I hope so. And I think that this one has such implications for the entire international system that the case will be made. However, to answer how I think it's going to come out, I think over the 50 to 100-year future, I think it is unlikely the West is going to stand up firmly in the face of this Chinese activity. But I'll tell you, I will continue to advocate for it along with many others, because it is a crucial impasse in international relations and not well understood.
On that note, Admiral Stavridis, thanks for a Friday. Glad that your parents are fine, and hope that all our mutual friends in Virginia Beach and Norfolk are as well. Thank you, Admiral.
And have a thought to those sailors deployed out in front of that hurricane, and let's hope it never rains in Norfolk and they get back safe.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, sir.